Sometimes a minor mishap can turn an otherwise safe situation into a life-or-death emergency. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of bravery and teamwork on Rescue 911. We begin on July 4th, 1990, as Tom and Gigi Weedoff and their two young boys enjoyed a warm summer day at the beach near their home in Mattituck, New York.
We had planned on spending the whole day at the beach. It was very crowded because it was a holiday. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Danny and Chris and some other friends decided to dig a hole. They had come out of the water, so I was not keeping my eagle eye on them. But I was glancing over to see where they were playing.
Christian noticed his 8-year-old brother Danny was in trouble and alerted their friend Amy.
He said, "Amy, look." So I went over there, and we built the air holes so we could breathe, but the sand kept going in the holes. I was telling him, keep digging and keep digging. Then his legs stopped kicking.
A family friend, Karen Boxall, had gone over to see what the children were up to.
I looked down.
What are you guys doing?
And they said, "We're digging them out." I thought, oh my God. And I started to scream to my sister-in-law and a friend to come over and help me. And they started digging. I tried to pull and realized I could not even budge him.
At first I said, my God, how long has he been under the sand? My first attempt to get him out was unsuccessful. I guess I got into a rage. I said, my God, he's dead. My son is dead.
My first reaction was to run and get help. And then I realized I could help myself. I could help Danny.
His mouth was full of sand. He was not breathing. And I went to do CPR, and there was no breath in me to give him. At that point then, I went numb. His face was so blue. I thought he was gone. I really did.
When we continue,
he was just barely breathing.
When a sand tunnel that 8-year-old Danny Weedoff was digging caved in, it buried him under hundreds of pounds of sand. By the time the boy was pulled out, he had stopped breathing. A bystander ran to call for help.
Police and fire emergency, Raina.
We have an emergency on the Sigsbee Road beach.
What's the problem?
Some children were burying a child in the sand. Nobody noticed it. The child is all blue.
At a nearby barbecue, volunteer advanced EMT Jerry Diffley was paged to respond to the incident.
KBL 994 metric.
The call came over as a signal 16, which is an ambulance call. Male youth, unconscious. It's a call always races through your mind. You know, you think about what you're going to come upon.
Dad, kiss, you got to rescue.
Taking yours? Let's go.
Bye, Dad.
In my mind, I tend to downplay it a little bit. It becomes emotional.
At the same time, an ambulance was dispatched from the fire station.
I yelled, I can do CPR.
And then I saw his heart beating through his chest. Thank goodness she was there.
I got a breath in.
I got a first breath in, and I remember sort of announcing that to everybody, that there was an airway, that it was not totally clogged with sand.
This has got to work. I can't lose him. And then he took a breath on his own. You kind of heard a pop in his chest. His breathing was very irregular and very noisy, very labored.
A policeman and another volunteer EMT had already begun emergency procedures when Jerry arrived and took charge of the scene.
When I first got there, we were administering oxygen by forcing air into his lungs. His lung sounds were horrible. You could just hear that there was tons of sand in his lungs. This was an emergency we had never seen before. Most of the area hospitals probably could not handle this. At that point, I realized, and everybody else realized, what a critical patient we had. We're going to need the helicopter, now. Okay. We had never used a helicopter before. We needed to get the helicopter here as quickly as possible.
Let's go, boys. Back, please.
He was just barely breathing. It was scary. I thought this little boy was going to die in front of us. We worked on him as hard and as frantic as we could.
I felt totally helpless. There's no explaining the feeling. How could this happen?
Danny was rushed by ambulance to a nearby school where the helicopter was going to land. His father rode up front.
I was too far away from him.
Come on, Danny. Let's go, pal.
And I needed to be in the back, but I knew that they had gotten me to the front to keep me away from him.
Okay, back. Let's go. 128 over 78. All right, somebody count respirations for me.
We didn't have too many more minutes left for this little kid.
Come on, Danny.
I guess the thought that went through my mind at that point is, had I made the right decision calling for the helicopter?
Is the helicopter here yet?
We thought it was still some minutes away. As soon as we got to the school, you could hear the helicopter coming over the trees. And that was the best sight in the world.
Stand back out of the way.
They brought Danny out, and I walked over and I said, please, let me give him a hug and a kiss. And I went over, and I hugged him and kissed him. And I think he opened his eyes for me at that point. I said, Danny, it's Mommy. And he looked at me. And then they took him away. They put him in the helicopter, and he was gone.
In those few minutes, he had gotten a lot worse. He had started to go into pulmonary edema. You start drowning in fluid from your lungs. I guess I really felt scared at that point, and helpless. It was just me. Just me and Danny.
30 minutes after Danny was pulled out of the sand, he arrived at University Hospital in Stony Brook. Pediatric specialist Dr. Phil Ubell was in charge of the emergency room that day.
We proceeded to treat him like a drowning.
Sand and fluid in Danny's lungs were cutting off his supply of oxygen. They had to suction it out. Even if he survived, he might have already suffered permanent brain damage.
Very good.
It was real hard to guess how much sand we got out of his lungs, but it looked to be about 1 to 2 tablespoons of sand.
Okay, easy on the neck there.
You don't realize how much you love them until you see them, just laying there. How precious they are to you. Is he going to be all right? Is he going to be able to do all the things that he loves to do? He turned his head to look at me, and I saw those blue eyes. Oh, it was incredible. Just incredible. I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Danny was released from the hospital after only 3 days. He has suffered no brain damage, and the damage to his lungs was minimal.
I think my dad is a hero because he pulled me out of the hole. And Karen's a hero because she gave me CPR, and Christian got help, and Amy got help. It's like really fun because when people help you, it's like you should help them when they're in trouble. If you want to dig, don't dig any tunnels. If it's a really deep hole, just don't dig any tunnels in the hole, because what happened to you might happen to me. What happened to me might happen to you.
Don't remember me?
Recently, Danny and his parents had a chance to thank Jerry Diffley and the team of rescuers who helped save their son's life.
I think they're fantastic. I don't know how many times I can say thank you or give them hugs. I mean, they cared so much, especially Jerry.
I really think it was teamwork. Everybody worked together, and that's why this miracle took place. It's a great feeling to know that all the hard work and the dedication pays off. In an instance like this, it really pays off. And I'd do it again for another 100 years.
Next.